be interviewing my father, Daryl Armour, for my funeral service education class, FSE 230 internship. And to start off, I'm just gonna ask you about 10 questions, just generally about your experience in the funeral industry. And the first question is, how long have you actually been in the funeral service business?
I was basically born into it due to my father and grandfather, but I've only been licensed for about 3 years.
When did you decide to start taking funeral directing full time?
I started once I retired from the state of Alabama back in 2011 to start full time in the business. But as far as working in it, I worked in it as a child all the way through my teenage years into my adulthood until I went into the military back in 1978.
And can you describe your experience growing up in the funeral industry?
Growing up in the business, it's been a lot of changes, a lot of things different, a lot of big differences. Because we are in a rural area, and I'm old enough to remember when, just like with limousines, people didn't have cars. We would have to go even to pick people up to make their initial arrangements. And, back then, most funerals were on Sunday, right after church. As the ministers were coming in the church service, we were trying to get in there, trying to get set up. Because people did not have transportation, so we did the Sunday funerals, because that's when everybody had made it to church and had a ride to church.
And how do you feel about your school experience for funeral service?
My school experience was great. I probably should have started a lot early, but life and opportunities happened, and I didn't. Once I was going to start the program once I got out of the military in 1982, and a job opportunity came along that at the time suited my needs. So to get into it later, I know that there are a lot of changes, but I should have done it a lot sooner. But my school experience was great. I learned a lot, because like I said, over the periods, and what I had learned, times had changed. So we have to change with the times in this industry, like in any other industry.
What have you learned from school that you still apply every day, or more often in the funeral service industry?
What have I learned from school? Basically, the main thing that I learned is to do due diligence. Go above and beyond. To do right by your families, even if they are wrong. You do your best to take care of them.
How has embalming changed?
As far as embalming and the way that my father and my uncles did embalming to now is pretty much the same. Chemicals have changed. Back when my dad and all embalmed, they used more water during the injections than they use now. And with other things that as far as coolers and refrigeration and all, it helps. But back then they didn't have that, so when they embalmed to hold long terms, because a lot of times back then we would may have to keep a remains for 2 weeks. So in that aspect, it's changed.
How has the law changed since you've been in the funeral industry?
Well, I can only, as far as the state of Alabama, and since I've been here, and as a result of it, I think that was the law is changing. I think it's the deciding factor in getting people to enroll in school or either get out of the industry. At one time, anybody could basically open up a funeral home and do just about anything unethical. But now, with the new board that we have, that's not going to happen.
You don't think so?
No.
If you could change or amend or introduce a new law into the funeral service, what would it be?
Change and introduce a new law. That's a tough one. I don't know. I only thing that I guess that I would introduce in is that that funeral directors would not only just not carry their license, but they would have some type of identification, badge or not, on them during times of making arrangements in funeral service, showing that their license number, their photo ID, and to represent who they are. So the general public would not get them confused with a label.
Gotcha. I agree with that. What qualities do you think a good funeral director should have?
First and foremost, honesty, respect, I think attitude is very important, and the way that you meet people, meet the public, and overall, basic integrity.
lastly, what's a piece of advice you would give anyone planning to start in the funeral service business?
uh, Before entering into the funeral service industry, shadow a funeral director to understand what they do. And, you know, being a funeral director or in the funeral industry is not just driving big, nice cars. You have to put in, you definitely have to put in the work. And it calls for a lot of time. And a lot of people aren't willing to give that time and energy.
I definitely agree with that. That concludes my questions and the interview. I appreciate your time. You know,
You're welcome.